Space had long since lost its wonder for Max O'Connell. Shuttling supplies between planets was just another routine for him, a monotonous rhythm in the grand expanse of the cosmos. He wasn't an adventurer mapping unknown frontiers, nor a soldier guarding humanity's outposts. No, Max was a delivery driver, plain and simple. The breathtaking vistas of nebulae and swirling galaxies were nothing more than wallpaper to his daily grind. Even the occasional asteroid skimming too close barely registered. But today was different. The coordinates on his delivery route led to Tyen, for a planet wrapped in secrecy and half-forgotten legends. Few ever spoke of it, and the scant data in the archives painted a vague picture. An ancient alien citadel, abandoned ages ago, orbiting a dying star. This trip stood out for another reason: his cargo. The package was unmarked, a featureless, weighty box with no buyer listed and no manifest to explain its purpose. All Max had were the delivery instructions: bring to fortress, ring the bell. As his ship descended through Tyen 4's atmosphere, the surface came into view. A fortress loomed in the distance, unlike anything he'd ever seen. It rose from the craggy, desolate terrain like a massive sentinel of time, its walls carved from what appeared to be the planet's own mountains. The structure pulsed faintly, ancient symbols etched into the stone glowing with an unearthly light. Around it, enormous levitating discs hovered silently, connected to the ground by shimmering beams of energy that radiated a soft, otherworldly hue. The entire site seemed alive, aware, as though it were studying him just as he was marveling at it. Max's console chimed, alerting him to land. The ship touched down on a barren plain near the fortress, the surface crunching under the landing gear. As he stepped out, the air felt heavy, not from the planet's weaker gravity, but from the sheer presence of the fortress itself. It exuded an undeniable power, the kind that whispered of civilizations long gone. No life signs appeared on his sensors, yet Max couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The entrance loomed ahead, a massive doorway inscribed with intricate alien markings. The glyphs glowed faintly, their light casting shifting patterns across the weathered stone. Max hesitated, then noticed something that seemed absurdly out of place. A small panel in the center of the door, unmistakably a doorbell. He approached cautiously, the weight of the package a tangible reminder of his task. His finger hovered over the button, the air around him tense with an almost electric anticipation. Legends said no one had ever penetrated the fortress, no matter how clever or strong they were. Yet here he was, standing at its gates with nothing but a box and a bell to press. Chime. The sound rang out, bright and cheerful, cutting through the eerie silence of the alien landscape. For a moment, nothing happened. Max shuffled nervously, wondering if the entire job was some kind of elaborate prank. Then the ground quivered beneath his feet, the vibrations building into a deep, resonating hum. Something was waking up. A deep, guttural vibration echoed from the heart of the fortress as the massive ancient door stirred. Dust cascaded from its cracks, and with agonizing slowness, it began to slide open, revealing an interior consumed by darkness. A faint, rhythmic light pulsed within, beckoning Max to enter. His throat tightened as he gripped the package closer. The sight of his ship behind him tugged at his instincts, urging him to retreat. But Max wasn't one to leave a job unfinished. Steeling himself, he stepped across the threshold. Inside, the fortress was nothing like Max had ever encountered. Towering stone pillars stretched endlessly into the void above, their surfaces inscribed with glowing alien glyphs. The symbols pulsed in harmony with a low, resonant hum that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The place felt alive, a relic not just of stone but of a long-forgotten civilization. At the far end of the cavernous chamber, a shadowy figure stood. Its shape was vaguely humanoid, draped in a flowing robe that shimmered with the same glowing symbols etched across the fortress. The closer Max moved, the more oppressive the air became, charged with an almost suffocating energy. Delivery for you," Max called out, his voice sounding small and misplaced in the vast space. The figure didn't move, but a deep, resonating voice filled the chamber, ancient and commanding. "You have brought the key." Max blinked in confusion. "Key? No, it's just a package. Standard delivery, no mystery, no strings attached." The figure shifted slightly, and for a brief moment, Max caught a glimpse of glowing eyes, blazing like twin suns, their intensity cutting through the shadows. "For 7,000 years, we have waited," the voice said, steady and ominous. "Now it has arrived." Max's pulse quickened, the package growing heavier in his grasp. "Look, I don't know anything about that. I just deliver stuff." He carefully placed the package on the ground and stepped back, his nerves screaming that something was about to happen. The box began to glow faintly, reacting to the presence of the figure. Slowly, it rose into the air as the figure extended a hand toward it. "The cycle begins anew," the voice intoned, as if addressing the fortress rather rather than Max frozen in place. Max glanced nervously at the still open door behind him. The weight of the air pressed against him, thick with tension. Whatever this was, it was far beyond his understanding or his job description. He hadn't signed up for ancient alien rituals. Then, as the figure began to open the package, a loud, eerie alarm shattered the silence. The sound was deep and unfamiliar, vibrating with a sense of impending doom. Max's heart sank. Whatever he had just delivered, it was waking something best left undisturbed. The figure stiffened, its glowing eyes dimming briefly. Impossible, it murmured. Max instinctively turned toward the open door, every fiber of his being urging him to run. But before he could move, the figure's voice rang out again. Human, you have done what none before you could. You have unlocked the fortress. Max stopped in his tracks, spinning around in disbelief. I pushed a doorbell, he said, incredulous. And that, the figure replied, its tone measured, was the test, not of strength nor intelligence, but of simplicity. For millennia, warriors, scholars, and rulers have sought to force their way inside, convinced the fortress held immeasurable power. Yet, the key was always a humble act, a gesture of trust. Max stared, his mind grappling with the absurdity of it all. You're telling me you've been waiting for a delivery guy? The figure's hands moved, opening the package to reveal a softly glowing orb, its light pulsing rhythmically. Not just any delivery, it said. The delivery of the seed. Curiosity momentarily overpowered his fear, and Max took a hesitant step forward. What is it? The figure tilted the orb in its hand, its light casting shifting shadows across the chamber. It is what your kind does best. Transforms. It reshapes. It changes everything. As the fortress began to rumble and pulse with new energy, Max felt an unsettling weight settle over him. This was no ordinary moment. Whatever the seed was, it had the power to alter the course of history, and somehow he, a regular delivery guy, had become its unwitting bearer. The distant alarm grew louder, the ground trembling beneath his boots as though the entire planet were stirring from a long hibernation. Something was awakening, and Max wasn't sure he was ready to face it. He stood frozen, watching as the figure loomed over the orb, holding it with a reverence that was almost sacred. Despite its calm demeanor, the atmosphere was thick with tension, a feeling Max couldn't shake. I just deliver packages, Max muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the growing hum of the fortress. Max liked to think of himself as unflappable, a guy who could fix a scanner or cover a colleague's shift without breaking a sweat. But this, ancient artifacts, universe-altering seeds, this was well beyond his skill set. Taking a cautious step forward, he tried to reason with the figure. Look, whatever you are, if this thing is about to change everything, could we maybe slow it down? Give me a hint about what's coming. The figure didn't turn, its gaze fixed on the glowing orb. Its voice, calm yet commanding, filled the chamber. The seed is no cause for fear, human. It is the spark that will awaken the dormant potential of your universe. The words sent a chill through Max. The fortress trembled harder, and the alarms blared relentlessly, their sound heavy with warning. Whatever was coming, Max had the sinking feeling it was far bigger than he was prepared for. Max blinked, his mind scrambling to keep up. Okay, but what does that even mean? His voice wavered, edging into panic. Are we talking universal destruction? Mind control? Is my planet about to go up in flames? The figure was silent for a beat, then spoke in a measured, almost reflective tone. Your kind always fears the worst. It is both your greatest flaw and your greatest strength. Max threw his hands in the air, exasperated. Fantastic, cryptic, philosophical nonsense. That's just what I needed right now. The figure finally turned toward him, and for a fleeting moment, Max thought he caught a flicker of something in its glowing eyes. Was that amusement? Could this ancient, otherworldly being actually have a sense of humor? Before he could fully process the absurdity of the thought, the ground beneath him jolted violently. This wasn't the distant rumbling from earlier. This was close, too close, as if the fortress itself were stirring. The orb in the figure's hand flared with an intense light, and its grip tightened. The Guardians, the figure said, its voice low and ominous. Max's stomach dropped. Guardians? Guardians of what? Me? The figure looked at him, and for the first time, Max thought he saw something resembling pity in its expression. The seed cannot be disturbed lightly. Though the fortress has slept, it has never been unguarded. Those who seek what they cannot understand will awaken forces long kept in slumber. Max let out a nervous laugh, the sound brittle in the tense air. Perfect. So now I've gone and woken up some ancient alien death squad. All because I rang a doorbell. The tremors deepened, shaking the very walls of the chamber. The glyphs on the fortress glowed brighter, their pulsating rhythm now syncing with the orb's light. The noise, the vibrations, the sheer enormity of of the moment crashed over Max like a tidal wave. His head pounded, his nerves frayed to the edge. Then, abruptly, everything stopped. The alarms ceased, the tremors stilled. A deep, suffocating silence fell over the chamber, the kind that made Max's pulse thunder in his ears. He froze, every muscle tensed, bracing for whatever was coming next. Came suddenly. The ceiling above split apart with a deafening crack, and Max instinctively dove to the ground, shielding his head. When he dared to look up, his breath caught. Descending from the ruptured sky were massive constructs, hovering with an eerie grace. Their sleek, angular forms pulsed with the same blue light as the fortress, a fusion of machine and organism that exuded menace. "You have got to be kidding me," Max muttered, his voice hollow. "Why is it always the flying death machines? They are the guardians of the fortress," the figure said, stepping forward with calm certainty, the orb still glowing in its hand. "For 7 millennia, they have waited, ensuring that no one disturbs the seed." Max staggered to his feet, brushing dust off his clothes. He shot the figure an incredulous look. "Would have been nice to get a heads up about them before I rang the bell." The figure didn't respond, its attention fixed on the descending constructs. Max yanked his hand back with a startled yelp, but it was too late. The guardians roared back to life, their attacks now fiercer and more unrelenting than before. "Fantastic job, Max," he muttered bitterly to himself. "You've officially made it worse." Stepping away from the sparking panel, his mind scrambled for another solution. There had to be a way out of this mess. The figure, the one spouting cryptic lines about the seed and the cycle, seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation, but it wasn't lifting a finger to help. Maybe it couldn't. Maybe Max was on his own. Then he heard it, a voice, faint at first, but unmistakable. Max, he froze, his breath catching. The voice wasn't coming from the figure, the guardians, or even the fortress itself. It was coming from his comms unit, still strapped to his wrist. "Max, do you hear me?" It was Juno, his dispatcher. Max blinked, stunned. Of all the times for her to get in touch. "Juno," he blurted, fumbling with the device. "How the hell are you even getting a signal out here? Does it matter?" She snapped back. "Where are you? Your tracker shows you on some backwater planet. What's going on?" Max let out a manic laugh. "Oh, just dodging alien death machines in a haunted fortress. The usual delivery stuff." There was a pause on the line, followed by a sigh of irritation. "You're kidding? I wish I was Juno. I'm serious. I need help." "Of course you do," she said, exasperated. "Okay, hang on. I'm pulling a scan of your location. Looks like there's an energy source near the center of the fortress, probably powering those machines. Can you reach it?" Max's eyes darted to the center of the room, where the figure stood, still clutching the glowing orb as if locked in a silent battle of wills with the guardians. "Yeah, I see it, but, small problem. That energy source is currently in the hands of a 7-foot-tall alien mystic." "Then I'd suggest you make nice with him," Juno said dryly, "or find a way to take that thing. Either way, you don't have much time." Max swallowed hard. "No pressure, huh?" As he crept closer to the figure, dodging erratic energy blasts from the guardians, a growing unease settled in his chest. Whatever power the orb held, it wasn't meant for him or anyone like him. Still, if he didn't act soon, he wouldn't have the chance to regret it. "Okay," Max muttered under his breath. "Time to channel your inner negotiator." He cleared his throat and took a cautious step forward. "Hey, glowing alien guy, I think we need to talk." The figure turned its glowing eyes toward him, and for a fleeting moment, Max thought it might actually hear him out. But then the orb flared even brighter, and the Guardian's attacks grew more frenzied. "Listen," Max said, his voice rising with urgency. "If we don't figure this out fast, none of us are getting out of here in one piece. I get it. You've got this whole ancient prophecy thing going on," Max said, his voice cracking under the pressure. "But if we don't shut these machines down, we're both toast." The figure hesitated, and Max saw a sliver of opportunity. "Just let me help," he urged. "We'll figure this out together. I don't care about the seed or the power or whatever you're guarding. I just want to make it out of here alive, so I can finish my shift." The silence that followed felt suffocating. The figure's glowing eyes narrowed, as if weighing his words. Finally, it spoke, its voice low and deliberate. "You are not like the others. You do not crave power. You seek only survival." Max nodded fervently. "Exactly. I just want to survive." The orb lowered slightly in the figure's grasp, and the guardians froze, their glowing lights dimming as if awaiting further orders. Max held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Had he actually managed to reason with it? After what felt like an eternity, the figure spoke again, its tone softer but no less ominous. "Very well. But know this, human, the seed's destiny is inevitable. It will change everything, whether you wish it or not." A chill ran through Max as the words sank in. "Right," he said, swallowing hard. Let's focus on not getting disintegrated first, yeah?" The figure nodded, and with a flick of its wrist, the orb's glow softened. The Guardians responded instantly, retreating into the shadows, their weapons powering down. The fortress seemed to exhale, the oppressive tension in the air easing slightly. Max let out a shaky breath, relief flooding his system. Somehow, against all odds, he'd survived. For now, at least, he wasn't going to die in some ancient alien stronghold. But even as the immediate danger subsided, the uneasy feeling in his gut only grew stronger. Whatever he had stumbled into, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He stood between the alien figure and the dimmed orb, his mind spinning through every possible way to stay alive. The Guardians lingered in the background, their presence still heavy and threatening despite their stillness. Max couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. This wasn't just about him or the delivery anymore. The figure wasn't his enemy, not really. The Guardians weren't either. They were all tied to something far bigger than Max understood, something ancient and powerful buried deep within the fortress. Juno's voice echoed in his head, her sarcasm biting even in memory. Make friends with the alien guy? Huh? But this wasn't about friendship, survival, or even his bad luck. It was about the package, the fortress, and the seed. Everything revolved around it. The figure, the Guardians, and now Max. They were all caught in its orbit, bound to a destiny he was only just beginning to glimpse. The orb hung in the alien's hand, its faint glow radiating an almost ethereal gravity. Max's pulse raced as he stared at it. This wasn't just a relic, not just a seed of power, it was control. Control over time, over cycles, over destiny itself. The figure had spoken of inevitability, yet hinted at something more, that inevitability could be shaped, manipulated. The alien's deep, resonant voice pulled Max from his thoughts. The Guardians await my command. They serve the seed, not me. And now, human, you have triggered the seed's awakening. You have disturbed what has slept for eons. Max raised a hand, his breath coming fast but his voice steady. Wait, hold on, he said, trying to piece everything together. Are you saying this is all part of some ancient prophecy? That I'm here to, what, set this seed thing into motion? The alien tilted its head, the glow of its eyes narrowing slightly. You misunderstand. You are no chosen one. You are an anomaly, a ripple in the flow of fate. The seed was always destined to awaken. It was never a matter of if, only when. Max's heart hammered as he stepped closer, his gaze locked on the orb. Then, clarity hit him, and his voice took on a new resolve. No, that's where you're wrong, he said, realization dawning. This was never just about the seed. It's about who delivered it. The alien was silent, its glowing eyes fixed on Max with an intensity that felt like scrutiny. For the first time, its stoic expression shifted, a flicker of something, uncertainty, crossing its face. Max pressed on, swallowing his nerves. I'm not some cosmic savior or chosen one. I'm just a delivery guy. And that's exactly why this is happening now. You think this is destiny? It's not. It's logistics. He gestured toward the orb, the faint light reflecting in his determined eyes. The seed wasn't waiting for the right moment. It was waiting for the right method. You've been stuck in your rituals, your prophecies, and your guardians for 7,000 years, overcomplicating everything. It was never about a warrior or a king showing up to claim power. It was about someone who didn't want it, someone who could deliver it without knowing what it was. The alien's expression shifted again, its eyes narrowing as if considering Max's words for the first time. It wasn't anger or confusion. It was something closer to understanding, as though a long-lost piece of the puzzle had finally fallen into place. Max took a steadying breath, his voice gaining confidence. You said it yourself, everyone else came here with an agenda. Power, control, knowledge. But me, I didn't care what was in the box. I was just doing my job. That's why I'm still here, Max said, his voice steady. The alien's hand trembled slightly as it held the orb. You believe the seed's purpose has been misunderstood? I don't just believe it, Max replied, his confidence growing. I know it. For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the Guardians, their energy fields flickering softly. The alien said nothing, its glowing eyes locked on Max as if searching for something deeper. Then, with deliberate care, it lowered the orb and placed it on the ground between them. You may be right, the alien said, its voice quieter now, almost reflective. The seed was meant to test the greed and ambition of those who sought it. The Guardians have defended it from those who wish to wield its power for their own ends. But if what you say is true, if it is the absence of desire, the neutrality of your purpose that has brought you here, then perhaps the seed was never meant to be used at all. Max stared at the orb, its glow steady yet subdued. A strange sense of calm settled over him. It wasn't about power or prophecy. It was something much simpler. valor. The irony wasn't lost on him. For all the legendary warriors and kings who had sought to claim the seed, it turned out the only one who could was someone who didn't care about it in the first place. So, now what? Max asked, breaking the silence. If the seed isn't supposed to be used, what happens next? The alien's gaze shifted to the orb. The seed's cycle has always ended in destruction. Those who claimed it were consumed by its power and brought ruin to themselves and their worlds. But if you are right, human, the cycle can be broken without death. Max blinked. Wait, are you saying I just saved the universe by delivering a package? The alien didn't respond directly. Instead, it gestured toward the orb. The decision is now yours. The Guardians will remain dormant. The seed will stay inert unless you choose to awaken it. Max's heart raced as the enormity of the moment hit him. The fate of the universe rested in his hands. He looked at the orb, then back at the alien figure, and the answer became clear. I'm not choosing anything, Max said firmly. It stays here, where it belongs. The alien inclined its head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement Max hadn't expected. Perhaps, it said softly, that is the wisest choice of all. And with that, the tension in the air dissipated. The Guardians powered down, their lights dimming to nothing. For the first time, the fortress felt still, peaceful. The Guardians, still hovering like silent sentinels, began to retreat, their glowing blue lights dimming until they disappeared into the darkness. The fortress, once alive with humming energy, seemed to relax, as if exhaling after millennia of tension. Max let out a shaky breath, his muscles finally unclenching. So, we're good? He asked cautiously. The alien nodded. We are at peace. Max chuckled, the sheer absurdity of the situation finally hitting him. I can't believe I just talked my way out of an ancient prophecy. You are an anomaly, Max O'Connell, the alien said, its tone no longer distant but almost reverent. And anomalies are often what the universe needs most. Max grinned, a strange sense of pride creeping in. Guess I'll add that to my resume. The alien stepped aside, leaving the path to the fortress's entrance clear. The doors, silent as they moved, had already reopened, revealing Max's ship waiting outside just as he had left it. No alarms, no explosions, no apocalyptic disasters, just peace. As he walked toward the exit, Max glanced back over his shoulder. What about you? What happens now? I will remain, the alien replied, its voice calm. As I have always remained. The Guardians will return to their slumber, and the seed will sleep. Max nodded, relief washing over him. Good, let's keep it that way. With that, he stepped out into the barren expanse of Taya. For, the fortress behind him now eerily quiet, its ominous presence softened somehow. Reaching his ship, Max climbed aboard, the familiar hum of the engines wrapping around him like an old friend. As he strapped in, he couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Saving the universe by doing nothing, who would have thought? As the ship lifted off, Max glanced out the viewport for one last look at the fortress. The massive structure, once the center of myths and fear, now felt ordinary, like just another stop on his delivery route. He smirked, shaking his head, punching in the coordinates for his next destination. Max muttered to himself, all in a day's work. The ship sped off into the vast void of space, leaving the fortress and its ancient secrets behind. There were no lingering questions, no unresolved mysteries. Max O'Connell had accomplished what no one else could, simply by not wanting what others had. The seed would remain dormant, the Guardians would rest, and for now, the universe was safe. And Max? He was just glad his shift was finally over. The end.